Hello, Laziali. Welcome to a special episode of Lazio Lounge. Special episode because he's leaving, and we have to talk about it because, I mean, in the last 8 years or so, he's been the leader, one of the most important uh, person of the club, right? And unfortunately, we're not talking about Alistair McKenzie, right? You're not leaving, at least not yet.
To be decided. Let's see. Oh, it's a sad day, Vittorio. I mean, I think we probably could see this coming, um, to a certain extent, but I think probably the speed with which this happened and probably the place he's ended up makes this a slightly kind of weird way to say goodbye to Ciro Immobile, who's well, I don't know. I guess we can debate where he stands in the list of all-time great Lazio players, but he's definitely right up in that discussion, isn't he?
Definitely, definitely. As I mentioned already, after seeing Nesta leaving, nothing can be compared to that. But definitely, Ciro is a legend of the club. I would say someone who gave everything for the shirt for Lazio, so he deserves big credit. Um, I think Alasdair, as is happened often with Claudio Lotito, it's sad to see things ending this way, right? Because it looks like he pretty much said, I cannot continue like that. What Lotito said this season, you remember when Sarri was sacked, he said that there were traitors in the locker room, pointing to Ciro. Um, I think this pushed Ciro to ask to leave, and probably Besiktas was the only club interested in signing Ciro Immobile.
Yeah, it made me think back to the last game of the season at home, where there was the big tribute to Philip Anderson, and it was quite well done actually. And I guess that is the benefit of announcing your departure in advance and kind of knowing and making that decision early, is that you do have the chance to say goodbye in the way you want to. But if anyone deserved to have that public goodbye, to be able to wave to the fans one last time, to be able to even just acknowledge that you're pulling on the shirt for the final time, um, it's Ciro Immobile. And in 8 years, he's built a legacy that is going to be incredibly difficult for anyone to match. You mentioned Alessandro Nesta. I mean, we are talking about a guy, I guess, on that level in terms of a connection with the fans and what he means to people, as well as what he's contributed as a player. And that is remarkable if you consider that he's not really there's no Lazio link in his life before joining the club on a transfer. He's not a boyhood Laziale who's come through the ranks. He's not a kind of returning Roman who came back later in his career, who just joined the club and built his own legacy. And I don't know. That's the thing I'm finding hard. Is it's just that the one of the club's greats has just kind of left quite quietly. There's been a social media video of him being able to kind of address the fans directly, but that's it. And we're just not going to see him again. And to me, that feels that's the transfer market, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, to me, it feels a bit wrong, doesn't it? I mean, I feel like there needs to be more, and I'm not really sure what I want. I just feel like I want more.
Well, again, it's sad how he left, right? Because there have been talking going on since the end of the season. Ciro wanted to leave, Lotito wanting to sell him, but at the right price. Lotito training, Immobile training, but didn't show up to the medicals. So it's very disappointing seeing how things. This is a very particular season summer for us, right? Felipe Anderson leaving, Luis Alberto leaving, Ciro Immobile leaving. This is an end of an era, right? Um, Last year we lost Milinkovic Savic. this season, Luis Alberto and Ciro Immobile, this is the end of really an era for Lazio, right? The trio that brought us so many wins, trophy, etc., are gone. So it's really a turning point for the for Lazio, and looking forward, I'm not really optimistic, but if you remember, Ciro came to replace Miro Klose, and not all fans were confident he would do it, and instead 207 goals with the shirt, with Lazio shirt. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And yeah, I think the club should have give more credit, more time to celebrate, more time to uh, say goodbye to Shiro. That's not the perfect way to say goodbye to the captain, right? Let's not forget, Chiro has been for the last, what was it, 4 years or so, the captain of this team, and probably he deserves something more from the club, and he didn't receive it. Again, this is one of the reasons why Chiro decided to leave. Do you think, Alistair, the other reason is because he felt that he was becoming a bench player and didn't want to?
Yeah, and look, we can't avoid the fact that he has had a difficult last couple of seasons. That the player who set all these records and won the Golden Boot and became the all-time top scorer, that player was clearly struggling to replicate that level in the last, particularly in the last season, but probably 2 years. Um, as he's got older, he's picked up more injuries. The more injuries he's got, the harder he's found it to get to his best form because he's been recovering fitness a lot of times and there's been recurring problems. And I think he became more of a player who produces moments rather than a player who produced consistency. And his consistency up until that point was absolutely astonishing. I mean, how many years were we doing this podcast where we kept saying every summer we need the Vice Mobile because if anything happens to this guy, we're in so much trouble. But nothing ever happened to him. We could rely on him for a good 3 or 4 years to basically play every game and keep scoring at that rate, and that was not normal. We became kind of very used to that, and in a way we came to depend on that, but there was nothing normal about that, and we can see that now more clearly than perhaps we did at the time. Um, and if you look, I guess, at just the stats, there's nothing wrong really with the goal return Chido's had in the last couple of years, but by his own standards, the level of performance and the output wasn't nearly the same. And you alluded to it earlier, the situation the club ended up in was already slightly tricky this summer, where, like you say, he wasn't going to be the nailed on first choice number nine, or perhaps shouldn't have been, considering the recent seasons he's had. And it's a question of how you handle that. But this is my main issue with the whole thing, is that I feel like there was a way of handling that and still continuing together, but it would have involved more cooperation where Chiro would be more willing to accept a reduced role in the team on a playing level and perhaps a reduced salary, but he would get to retire as a Lazio legend in the way that he's spoken about previously. And from the club's perspective, they would have to show willingness to allow him to do that. But it seems like on both counts they've struggled to kind of
Yeah.
be willing to do something along those lines, and here we are, and he's ending up in Turkey.
You know what? You mentioned the stats. Uh, we didn't mention the Golden Boot. I don't know when Laziale will win again the Golden Boot, but more than the stats, the funny thing about Ciro Immobile was that we were so used to seeing him scoring every single day, every single game, that when he did, we were disappointed, right? Oh no, Ciro didn't score today. This is terrible. I mean, this tells you how much we were used to see Ciro scoring, which is unbelievable because nobody scores every single game. Ciro, for 4 or 5 years, he did it regularly. You know, how many times did he win the Capocannoniere? 3 times with us, 1 time the Golden Boot. Even the season where he didn't produce his best in the Champions League, he was decisive, right? 2 goals against Celtic, one very important goal against Feyenoord that give us the group qualification. He scored against Bayern in a very important game. So in the Champions League, we still could see sparks of the real Ciro, right? So yeah, it's incredible. And the other thing is, we talk about the goal scoring, but one thing that I think all the fan loves about Cheeto was he was fighting every single game. He was defending, coming back and track back the ball, and do everything he could to help the team. This is something that you don't see number 9 usually doing. So that's another very important thing. One of the reasons I think why fans loved him, because Cheeto, if he was on the pitch, he was fighting for 95 minutes. So, and this is even probably one of the reasons why in the last 2 years he got caught up by injury, because he never he was fighting, he was running all over the pitch. So you get tired when you get older, you don't have the energy to do it again. But you know, uh,
I think that that is also one of the reasons why he's so underrated
yeah,
beyond Lazio fan, and this has followed him throughout his career. Obviously, followed him into an Italy, sure, but people are looking at that slightly differently after this summer. Sorry for bringing it up, but
you're talking about how good Scamacca was at the Euros. I
but he is
mean,
a European champion. Italy won the Euros with Ciro in attack, where he scored 3 goals, I think, at that tournament. And like you say, he worked his arse off for that team, running
can
around, annoying defenders, creating space, allowing Insigne and Chiesa the space and opportunity to do what they did. But he was constantly criticized, and I think that he probably was one of these players who there is a big difference between being a fan of the club he plays for and being someone who flicks on the big games or watches highlights, because you have to see him playing full matches to understand why he was so special, I think, because it was that constant movement. He's just a very intelligent player, very intelligent striker. Was he the most gifted technical footballer in the world? No. But nobody ever really claimed that among Lazio fans, that he's the most lethal finisher or that he's got the best touch or any of this stuff. That was never really his game. But we're talking about a guy who absolutely maximized his potential at Lazio. He knew what his game was and he found the absolute perfect way of expressing it, particularly under Simone Inzaghi, but then he was able to adapt it under Sarri as well. And I think that deserves so much more plaudits than he ever got. And it's a real shame for me that he wasn't more widely praised. But at Lazio, he really found a home, didn't he? Because people could appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, after what happened in these Euros, it would have been nice, or at least it would have been um, professional from Gazzetta dello Sport to say, hey guys, we were completely wrong. Cheeto was much better than we give credit, and Scamacca is terrible. But again, it didn't happen. They blame everybody else. And it's funny because one wrote me that in the Euros we won, it's all thanks to Chiesa. I don't know what type of Euros he saw, but he said that Italy won the Euros thanks to Chiesa. Now, probably my TV was broken because it didn't look to me that way. But yeah, it's simply embarrassing how people don't give credit to Ciro Immobile. And one thing we have to mention, Alasdair, and one thing that I really appreciate about the guy, he kept improving. You know, when he came in to Lazio, he was scoring pretty much the same way. Then he started scoring with a header, which is not the typical goal Ciro do. He will start improving his penalty because his penalty wasn't great. He improved year after year. He became a complete player. Yes, his quality, his skills weren't amazing. We are not talking about Milinkovic Savic, but he was someone who every single season tried to improve himself, and that's why he scored so many goals. So
How
yeah,
important do you think the relationship with Simone Inzaghi was for Ciro? Because
uh,
those were the best years.
you know what? I think Cheeto is that type of player who need to see to feel the love from the manager. I think his story proved that, right? When the manager trusted him, he would smash, scores goal every single week. When the manager didn't trust him, didn't give him confidence, didn't show love, Ciro would be an average player. I think that had a huge impact. Um, and we saw it in Dortmund, we saw it in Spain, etc. When he was part of the group, he didn't play that well. But Inzaghi immediately said, you are my number nine. I trust you. And Ciro starts scoring, even though, I mean, he replaced Miro Klose. That wasn't easy. And, he was amazing. And even Sarri, in his typical way, showed love to Ciro, right? He said, he's not my typical number nine, but he scores so many goals that I have to find a way to make him keep scoring. So I think that's the secret for Ciro Immobile. And the question mark is with Besiktas, will the manager give him love, show him respect, etc. That's a question mark for his future. But definitely Inzaghi was so important. I mean, Inzaghi was the key event for Luis Alberto. Let's not forget that, right?
Yeah, and I think Inzaghi himself, like you say, it's that love, that relationship certainly helped because they were friends off the pitch as well. So they'd spend time together, and you're absolutely right. That was so clear that I mean, I think it goes for any player. Obviously, like the more love you feel, you do sometimes get players who thrive on adversity and thrive on criticism, and they really love that or love to prove people wrong. Whereas Chiro's definitely someone who embraced, admiration and
Yeah.
love and respect. But also the style of football, I think, really suited him. The more direct play, the 3-5-2, the hitting into space, creating counter attacks, and having these guys behind him like Milinkovic, Savic, and Alberto, who are capable of, you know, putting perfect balls in his path, I guess, and setting up in the right way. It was just the perfect combination for a long time.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Inzaghi was a number nine knew what Ciro needed,
Mm.
and he tried to. I mean, Inzaghi was a very good number nine who was unlucky, too many injuries, and didn't show his real talent. So I think he felt what Ciro was feeling and did everything to make him shine. And I think that's how things went.
He
So
lived through Ciro for a while because
yeah,
it made
yeah,
me think of that goal. I can't remember who it was against, but the famous clip of Ciro running down the pitch to score, and you see Inzaghi on the touchline running all the way down alongside him. And
I think it was the derby, one of the first goal Ciro scored to the derby. And let's not forget that since January, we heard about rumors of Inter signing Ciro, and the link was pretty much Inzaghi and Ciro Immobile. So I think Ciro had a little bit of hope to finish to Inter with Inzaghi and maybe revamp his career, etc. That didn't happen. But I mean, Inzaghi need to get a lot of credit for Ciro's career and for Luis Alberto. So again, this brings me to the question. I thought when Inzaghi left, probably was the right time to sell both of them and restart from scratch with a ton of money. Because if you sold Ciro and Luis Alberto 3 years ago, you could have asked not for 10 million euros or 3 million euros, you could have asked for 40 each, right? And with 18 million euros, you could rebuild the team. Do you think Lazio made the wrong decision keeping both till now?
no, I don't think so. I think it's easy to rewrite history, but for me, I think it was almost at a point where he has offered so much. You've got to respect your legends, and he has offered so much that he earned the right to be able to stay if he wanted to stay. And for a long time, it looked like and sounded like that is what he wanted. He'd made a home here, and this is where he wanted to finish his career, basically. And that's not the way it's going to be. And it's a shame because if it is all about game time and so on, he can't have expected that he was always going to be a starting number nine for
No.
a big Serie A club until he's like 40 years old. I mean, it was always unlikely. Um, the problem is obviously there's no one really obviously stepping up to replace him either. So he's kind of left before we really know who is going to be that guy. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, he's definitely earned his place among in the debate of best ever Lazio players, best ever Lazio signings for sure. And yeah, and a Serie A great, not just a Lazio great. You know, he's right up there in the all-time scoring charts with
Absolutely.
some of the most decorated, most celebrated players in Italian football history. Ciro's name is right alongside them because of what he's achieved. I mean, obviously also at Torino, but mostly at Lazio. And I don't know. Do you feel like do you think his legacy is there forever, or did he need to win something more? I mean, obviously, individual basis that you don't do better than the European Golden Boot, but in his trophy cabinet, the Coppa Italia, a couple of Super Cuppas, should we have achieved more with that team, perhaps?
Well, I was thinking tonight that we had Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, and Ciro Immobile all together, and we reached the Champions League twice. That's the biggest regret I have. We should have achieved more often the Champions League qualification. We can talk about referee, etc. But I thought with those type of player, you should have done more. Not only with Ciro, but in general with Milinkovic and Luis Alberto at the top. So that's the biggest regret we have. Not only talking about Ciro, definitely. And yeah, probably the other players weren't good enough. But I mean, not finishing the top four with Ciro finishing capocannoniere and scoring every single game. That's pretty impossible to believe, right? With Milinkovic Savic dominating games, that's really hard to understand. And Alasdair, this you mentioned it a little bit. What's coming next? Because rumors are that Lazio won't sign a number nine. They probably will sign a winger. So this means that Chiro's replacement is already in the squad, and it would be or Tati Castellanos or Noslin. I don't know. Are you convinced they're gonna replace Ciro? And especially after one season at Lazio, where Tati didn't impress, let's put it like this. Do you think this year, getting the starting role, Tati will prove everybody wrong?
Well, I do always say, and I stick to my guns again with this, that players who come in to Serie A for the first time always deserve a second season because it is a big adjustment from a lot of leagues. The style of football is often very different. The style of training is very different to what they're used to. Um, but the problem with Tati wasn't really that he was struggling to fit into the team. I thought he actually fit into the team pretty well. The issue is that he couldn't finish his chances, and that's not necessarily a tactical thing or an adjustment thing or a language thing or anything. It's just basic striker composure that he seemed to lack. But I don't know, maybe with Ciro gone, he'll feel more confidence, more responsibility. I do think he deserves another crack at it, and I do hope that we will see more from him because he should have scored more goals last season than he did. If we want to look at that with a positive spin, it means at least he was in the games, he was getting in the right positions. He just wasn't able to put them all away. And if he can find a bit more ice in order to finish off these opportunities, then I think there's a good striker there. But it was alarming that it didn't improve as the season went on. That was the main thing. So we'll have to wait and see. You've mentioned the end of an era. It really is, and when you look at that list of players that you've been talking about from that time, um, we don't have a squad now really with the same quality, and that's perhaps the most alarming thing. And Marco Baroni is not a coach who's coached at this level before either. So he's got a big job on his hands to transform this team into something um, capable, really, of pushing at the top end of the league. And I still feel like the signings we've made have been pretty good. I'm not unhappy about them, but I still feel like we're lacking big name signings. We're lacking a bit of quality, a bit of established stardust to put into this team that we can rely on, I guess.
And do you think it's coming, or do you think this is it? Yesterday we signed Nuno Tavares, the left back that we were missing.
Yeah,
This is it, right? This is
I'm
the
not
end.
sure. I'm not sure Nuno Tavares is the guy I'm talking about here. I don't know. I don't know, Vittorio. I mean, um, it's always hard to imagine with Lazio, isn't it? Spending, because to get that kind of player, you need to spend serious money, and that's always the issue with Lotito. Is he's not going to be willing to spend that kind of money unless he's absolutely certain about something. And yeah,
Yeah, let's not forget that if we think how much we paid Ciro, that's incredible, right? 8.5 million euros. And it was probably the best money spent from Lotito. I mean, we spent more than double to sign Murici. Oh, so this tells you what an incredible bargain we got for Ciro Immobile.
yeah, but yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't think Nuno Tavares. I mean, I think it's fine. Like he's a left back with a good CV. I think he's a
Left-footed, finally, as well.
yeah, but a good pickup, because I think
Yeah,
when you're talking about getting Ciro for that price, he's one of those kind of players where like there's clearly potential there. It's not worked out at Arsenal at the complete top end, but obviously he had a lot of potential in order to earn that move in the first place, and I quite like that signing. I haven't watched a lot of him, but I think that there's potential there. So we'll see. I mean, the squad is coming together. Alonso's only 2 days in, and already we've got 4 new signings and a fifth one arriving. I mean, it's pretty good, Vittorio, for Lazio summer.
yeah. I would say we should have done this last year, not this year. But imagine what the season would have been last year if we gave Sarri all the new signing at the beginning of the Alonso camp and not at the beginning of the season. Let's not forget that when Dusi arrived, when after 3 games, before the third game of the season, so that would have changed a lot of things, in my opinion.
Mm, yeah. Well, let's see. Preseason about to properly kind of kick off, friendly games, all that stuff. I think we're both about to go and take a little break, so we'll see. I'm not sure when we'll next do a podcast, but by then I'm sure Lazio will have signed an incredible new number 9, and we'll all be delighted.
Again, I don't think we're going to sign a number 9, maybe a winger, a replacement for Felipe Anderson. Who knows? But yeah, I think we need to sign a big name, not massive, but a name that can bring a little bit happiness to the fan, because the season tickets subscription have opened the 1st of July, and we did like 5,000 tickets sold so far. So it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, and it makes sense, right? Last season was dreadful. Our summer transfer isn't great. Fans are not happy with Lotito, so
And the protests have continued into Alonso as well,
yeah,
which
yeah. So
isn't great.
if we don't sign a big name, I don't see how we can reach 20K of subscriptions. Maybe 15 would be good already. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to just kind of turn the page and try and start something fresh now, but yeah, it is hard, especially losing someone like Ciro in this manner, and
Yeah,
it's hard to kind of be hugely optimistic right now. But got to have faith, I guess, and try and believe that they'll manage to make the squad look a bit better by the time that the season actually starts.
Uh, yeah, well, this will be time for another podcast to discuss about the new team, the new Lazio team with the new signing, etc. This was dedicated to a legend, to our captain Ciro Immobile, who will be definitely missed, and we hope to see him back, maybe in a manager role, maybe sport director, who knows, in the future. Um, Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks Alistair for joining me, and we'll be back as soon as possible. Take care, guys.
Cheers.